Hello and welcome to this week's YouTube video. Today's video is part of a two-part series where I show you how I painted these two dogs. This week I will show you the background and the golden retriever, and next week I will show you the dalmatian, which was incredibly tricky, so it needs its own video. I will be using oil painting paper. This commission is A3 size, and all I have done is stick my paper to a piece of MDF board with masking tape. I've covered the paper in a wash of transparent oxide yellow and ultramarine deep plus Gamsol. Let's have a look at the video and I can talk in more detail about what I am doing as I go along. If you have watched any of my other videos on my channel, you'll know that I tend to work by covering the whole canvas in paint and working on the whole thing. This one is a bit different, and I'm going to show you a different way of painting. I am going to work on this one section by section. When one section is correct, I will then move on to the next section. I've done it like this because my dalmatian was very complicated and it took me ages to draw him out. The mat also has quite a complicated pattern on it, even if it is suggested. This way allows me to keep my drawing intact. I should mention though the major disadvantage in painting section by section. You have to be very disciplined in moving on. As you lay your paint, it will be very difficult to judge your painting as there will be great big white gaps and it will look odd. If I show you sitting by sitting as the painting progressed, you'll see what I mean. I just had to trust that I was correct and move on, even though my missing dalmatian made it very hard to judge if I was right with my retriever. Once I'd added the carpet, I thought maybe I had overused a transparent red oxide and alizarin crimson, but I left it and kept going. Once the dalmatian was in place, any colour issues I thought I had disappeared. The danger with this method is to think you're out and start fiddling and painting over sections continuously. If you do this, you'll lose the freshness of the paint. So my best advice, if you are going to use this method of painting, to be really disciplined and keep moving on. I also needed to paint this in a logical order because my dogs are in front of their background and they are sat on top of that rug. If I were to paint the dogs first, followed by my background, I would be dragging my background edges into my dog, and this would make my dog appear behind the background. So always think about your painting in terms of background, midground, and then foreground. In terms of my palette, this really is a painting of two halves. For this part of the background and the golden retriever, I have used mainly four colours. These are yellow ochre light, Rembrandt, cadmium red, Winsor & Newton, ultramarine deep, Rembrandt, and titanium zinc white, Gamblin. This is almost the Zorn palette, and for simplicity I am going to refer to it as the Zorn palette. I have also added transparent oxide red and alizarin crimson for the dog's nose and eyes. For the carpet and floor area, I have used my Zorn palette plus transparent oxide red, Rembrandt, and alizarin crimson, Gamblin. For this carpet area, I have added cadmium yellow. Notice this carpet area reflects on the bottom of the dalmatian's leg and also in the inside areas here and here, so this colour will be present there too. I want to show you first how the Zorn palette works, and it is very simple to use. Blue is cool, white is cool, red is warm, yellow ochre is warm. I therefore have a warm, cool palette. If I want to cool anything down, I use blue and white. If I want to warm anything up, I can use red and yellow ochre. In terms of value, if I want to darken anything, I can use blue. If I want to lighten it, I can use white. Yellow ochre will also lighten my mix, but not to the extent of white. Cadmium red is a mid-tone colour, so it will affect the value of my dark mixes and the light mixes. Also bear in mind that both my cadmium red and titanium white are opaque colours, so when I add these they will overpower any mix. My cadmium red is a very saturated colour, so I don't need to add a lot of it if I am looking for subtle hues. I can also mix up a couple of transition colours. These are a purple, ultramarine deep and cadmium red, and a green, ultramarine deep and yellow ochre light. Transition colours can be both warm and cool. In addition to these, there are also 3 other colours which I'm going to mix up, as these will be very useful to my palette. These are an orange, yellow ochre light and cadmium red. This is still a very warm colour, but it is less powerful than my cadmium red. I'm also going to mix up a grey, which has a green leaning. This is my purple plus yellow ochre light. My last colour is a brown, and it is a mix of ultramarine deep and orange. Notice that 2 of these colours that I have mixed are complementaries, orange and blue and yellow and purple. Orange neutralises blue and vice versa, yellow neutralises purple and vice versa. Looking at my palette, I have every colour available to me on the colour wheel, but because I am using a limited palette with only one saturated colour, I know they will give me a very harmonious range of colours, which is perfect for my background. When I look at my reference photo, I ask myself, what colour is it? I start with 3 primaries first and ask myself, am I seeing red, yellow or blue? If I am seeing red, it could only be red, purple or orange. If I am seeing blue, it can only be blue, purple or green. If I am seeing yellow, it can only be yellow, green or orange. I then ask myself, how light or dark is it? Do I need to add white to lighten it, or can I get away with yellow ochre? If I am really struggling to see the colour, I hold a grey card up to my reference photo if it is a mid-tone value, and a white card up to it if it is a light value. If you look at my finished painting, you will see how I have shifted between purple, blue and grey. I've just added a bit of white to lighten my mixes, and that's all I've done for the stairs area. For the golden retriever, I have moved into my oranges, and I have used my cadmium red a lot to get these really punchy oranges that you are seeing. Remember, cadmium red is both opaque, the warmest colour on my palette, and very saturated. So if I concentrate this colour in the oranges, my dog will stand out from the background. I have also mixed up an additional colour which will act as a black. This is alizarin crimson, transparent red oxide and ultramarine. I've used that colour for the dog's eyes and nose, and I've mixed it into my orange to give me the darker browns under the dog's neck. Notice the shift between warm and cool on the dog's coat. For the cooler areas, I have added a little white and a bit of purple with a blue leaning. This is enough to mute down my orange in these chest areas here. As I move around the dog to its right side, I begin to get some reflected light on the legs, so I just add a bit more blue and some white. Remember, blue and orange are complementary colours. One will neutralise the other. Orange is warm, blue is cool. In these areas in the shadows here and here, I am using my grey, purple mixed with yellow. So I am using a very simple warm cool palette for my retriever too. Red, orange are my warmest colours, and then I add purple with a blue leaning or purple plus yellow for my cooler coat colours. I adjust my value with my white to make it light, or use my rich black of transparent oxide red, alizarin crimson and blue to make it dark. As I move down into my matte area, I introduce alizarin crimson into my palette. So for example, my purple here and here is now mixed with alizarin crimson rather than red. And the red in my matte carries both cadmium red and alizarin crimson. I don't want the red in my matte to compete with the red in my dog. My alizarin crimson and transparent red are not as strong, opaque or as warm as my cadmium red. I can also use my green mixture to neutralise my red a little, so it is not too punchy. I don't want the pattern to be too distracting. Remember, red and green are complementary colours. One will neutralise the other. The trick to painting fabric is to make sure that you have enough paint on your canvas that you can pull the paint around. Also, do not use any medium. Use the paint straight from the tube as it will behave better and will be easier to drag. I tend to lay the paint first with a flat brush and then use an eclipse comber to drag the edges into each other. You can be quite rough with it. If you keep all your edges super soft, you'll find the pattern on the fabric will just appear suggested. You'll also need to keep shifting between warm and cool. For example, this area here is warmer than this area here. This area here is cooler than this area here. You'll notice also the shifting colours, so red to yellow to purple to blue. To make the fabric look realistic, you'll need a mixture of colours, temperatures, and also keep those edges soft. The wooden floor area is a combination of purple, that's cadmium red and blue, rich black, that's transparent oxide red, alizarin crimson and blue, and orange. I've made it quite sketchy and the paint is quite thin. This gives me a nice reflection without too much effort. For this area here, I think it is the first step of the stairs, I had to introduce cadmium yellow to my palette. If I had used the same yellow to paint this step, it would have competed with my retriever. I wanted my retriever to be my warmest, most saturated area on the painting. Cadmium yellow is not as warm as yellow ochre light. Remember, red is our warmest colour on the palette. And as we move away from red, everything begins to get cooler. Yellow ochre light is nearer to orange than cadmium yellow, so it's warmer. The problem I have with cadmium yellow is that it is also a very saturated colour, so I have to neutralise it with my purple and also a little green. And I also have to add a little of my original orange mix to this colour as well. This gives me a yellow brown which is not as warm as my retriever, but at the same time is strong enough to balance out that punchy orange. Next week I'll show you how I painted the dalmatian. I hope you have enjoyed today's video and found it useful. Please like and subscribe if you can, and check out my website sarahhallidayart.com, where you will find examples of my work and also details of online classes that I run. Thank you for watching and see you for the next one.